Hello and welcome to this English lesson led by the British Online School. My name is Dr. Rebecca Try and this is an English lesson that should be used as the second in a series starting with our introduction to English. You should use this alongside a PowerPoint, the worksheet and the answer sheet, which are all available below. So hopefully you're excited, ready to get started on this fantastic lesson. Today we're looking at story openings, and like last lesson, we're still focusing on those same key learning objectives. Okay, so these key learning objectives go over the course of this week. So we want to be thinking about communicating effectively, clearly and imaginatively, to be able to identify and interpret explicit and implicit information and ideas. And so that once we've done this, we will be able to write in a variety of sentences using full stops and capital letters, and also to organise our writing into paragraphs using a range of connectives. So we're going to start this week's lesson with a quick quiz. So what I want you to do is to answer these questions either on your worksheet, on a piece of paper, or in your own document. If you're really stuck and you don't know the answers, so for things perhaps like you don't know the definition of explicit or implicit, then you can go and look those answers up, but make sure that you write the answers down in a different colour so that you can see that you did have to go and look those up. But that's fine. From then onwards, I want you to complete the rest of these questions. I would say you can have 5 minutes to do this, okay? So pause the video now and spend 5 minutes completing the quick quiz. Good luck! Here are our answers for the quick quiz. So the first question, what does the word explicit mean? This means something that is stated clearly with no room for doubt. So if I said, I am an English teacher, okay, that is explicit information. Now the word implicit means something that is suggested but is not definitely stated. So you might be able to infer or guess that because I'm an English teacher, that means I went to university, which I did, but I haven't explicitly said that to you. All I've said is that I am an English teacher. We're then looking at question 3. So question 3A, the he is a pronoun, okay? So we've got lots of different pronouns in the English language. He, she, they, okay, are the most common ones. And remember, other people use different kinds of pronouns, so what we call now neo-pronouns. So they can be things like she, like je even, so that's Z-I-E, okay? It's always sensible and kind to use a person's preferred pronouns. My preferred pronouns are she, her, but it's up to you to ask the individual what their preferred pronouns would be. B. Okay, so this is something that's used to name a particular person, place, or thing. This is a proper noun. Okay, and finally, the answer to C is a common noun. Okay, something that's used to identify a class of people, places, or things. So give yourself a mark out of 5 and say well done for what you've done already. So one of the core parts of English is reading, and we touched on this quite a bit in last lesson. But what we're going to be doing today is actually reading an extract. So we're going to be reading the opening to Percy Jackson and the Lightning Thief by Rick Riordan. I want you, when you're reading this through, to read it out loud to yourself. So this will be to practice your public speaking skills. I want you to think carefully about where you put emphasis or feeling. Now, the extract is available on the worksheet below and will also be available on a link which we will provide for you. As you're reading, I want you to make some notes on your worksheet answering these 3 questions. So who is the main character? What is happening? And is this an interesting opening to a story? So that third one is up to your own interpretation. Okay, so it's your opinion. Is this interesting? If so, think about why. If not, then say why it's not. Now, if you're not sure of the pronunciation or of a particular word, or you're a little bit unsure and want to hear someone reading it, then you can listen to the whole first chapter being read out loud at the link on the PowerPoint. Okay, and that's on YouTube for you. So I want you to spend probably about 15 minutes reading this through and making a few notes on your sheet. So pause the video now and spend 15 minutes working on reading and then making notes on this extract. See you in 15 minutes. So we've now read the beginning of Percy Jackson and the Lightning Thief, and we know a little bit about maybe what the book is going to be. Okay, so our task, now that we've read it and made a few notes, is to make some bullet points. Okay, thinking about our opinions on what might happen and what has happened. So what I want you to do is spend 5 minutes doing this task. I want you to make bullet points for 3 or 4 things that happen in the extract, and then think about what might happen next. Once you've done that, I want you to write a short summary of the extract in 3 to 4 sentences. Think about which line intrigues you the most as a reader and why. If you want to challenge yourself, think about how the title intrigues readers. So we've got Percy Jackson and the Lightning Thief as the title, and then we've also got the chapter title, which you can see on the extract. Think about those 2 different titles and how they might intrigue readers. Think as well about how well does Riordan intrigue his readers, and give some examples to explain your response. Okay. Key vocabulary for this task would be extract, which is a part of a text, which I've mentioned quite a lot, and intrigues, which means to interest. Okay, so take 5 minutes now, pause the video and spend 5 minutes completing this task. If you're a bit stuck, you can have a look at the answer sheet. But again, anything you get from the answer sheet, you need to make notes in a different colour so that you can see which ideas were your own. Okay, so off you go, 5 minutes, pause the video now. So before we start thinking about writing our own story opening, a good thing to think about is, why is the opening of a story really important? So story openings often contain narrative hooks, which are designed to interest the reader enough that they want to continue reading. So the idea is that they hook onto the reader and pull them in. Sometimes writers use these to describe an important setting or to introduce us to the main character. They can also introduce the reader to a problem that needs solving. So narrative hooks might use a variety of literary techniques that you might have come across before, such as metaphors, similes, short sentences, complex or compound sentences. We'll get into those a little bit more later. Direct address, which means directly talking to and engaging with the reader. Over-exaggeration or hyperbole. And drama. Okay, so all of these techniques help to build tension and make the reader more interested in the story. So what we're going to be doing for the rest of this lesson is looking at the Percy Jackson extract, thinking about how Rick Riordan makes the opening really interesting. We're then going to be starting to think for next lesson about how we might make our story openings interesting. See you on the next slide. So now that we've learned a little bit more about story openings, what we're going to be doing is having a think about the different kind of narrative hooks, the ways in which Rick Riordan opens the story of Percy Jackson and the Lightning Thief. So we're looking just at this section here. I'll read it out to you. As I'm reading, think about, as well as the examples on the board, anything else you might be able to pick out. So, look, I didn't want to be a half-blood. If you're reading this because you think you might be one, my advice is close this book right now. Believe whatever lie your mum or dad told you about your birth and try to lead a normal life. Being a half-blood is dangerous. It's scary. Most of the time it gets you killed in painful, nasty ways. If you're a normal kid reading this because you think it's fiction, great. Read on. I envy you for being able to believe that none of this ever happened. But if you recognise yourself in these pages, if you feel something stirring inside, stop reading immediately. You might be one of us. And once you know that, it's only a matter of time before they sense it too, and they'll come for you. Don't say I didn't warn you. So that's quite an effective opening, isn't it? It makes you quite interested, intrigued as to what's going on. And some of the ways that Rick Riordan does this, I've got on the board ahead of you. So the first way he does it is withholding information from the reader. So he keeps talking about half-bloods, acting as if we know as a reader exactly what a half-blood is. Okay, he never explains what that is. Gives you a little bit of information, like he doesn't want to be a half-blood, it's dangerous, it's scary, and things like that. But we don't really know what being a half-blood means. And when he's saying, you know, I envy you for being able to believe that this is fiction and you might be one of us, you start thinking, okay, well, in that case, what is a half-blood? How would I know if I was one of you? Then Rick Riordan backs this up even further by gradually revealing some details in quite a slow way whilst also being overly dramatic. Okay, so he tells you little bits like, if you're a half-blood, close the book right now. Believe the lies your mum and dad told you. So again, lies, that's going to make the reader more interested. He then uses words like dangerous, scary, says it gets you killed in painful and nasty ways. That's going to make a reader really interested and think about, what is half-blood? How does it cause these things? How does it mean that it's scary, it's dangerous? And might I be one? So more and more, Rick Riordan is bringing the reader in, making them think about what's going on and making them really interested in reading more to find out all the answers. Another way he really works effectively to support this is by directly addressing the reader. So he constantly uses the word you. He talks to the reader. He says, if you're reading this because you think you might be one, he says, don't say I didn't warn you at the end. He's constantly talking to the audience. Now, this is going to bring the reader in more. It's going to make them more interested. It's going to make them think about their own situation. Are they a half-blood? Could they be a half-blood? What is it like being a half-blood? Would they enjoy being a half-blood or would they hate it? Okay, so all these things add together to create a really effective opening. And what I'm going to ask you to do is to find a few more. Now, this task is very similar to a kind of GCSE question you might get. I know GCSEs are a long way away, but the earlier we start practicing them, the better we're going to get. So the story we're going to answer today is, how well does Riordan open the story? Highlight and label the techniques he uses and their effect. Now, usually in a GCSE question, I'd ask you to write a small paragraph answering this. But at the moment, we're still working on labeling or annotating the extract. Okay, so we're just figuring out our own ideas and making some notes on it. Eventually, over the next few lessons, we might build that up into a full answer. But at the moment, we're just doing our background research. Okay, so our aims are going to be able to write in a variety of sentences using full stops and capital letters. And we're going to be thinking about making sure that we're using proper grammar and spelling. We're organising our writing into paragraphs if need be. We might not need to use paragraphs at this point, but we want to be making sure that we're also using a variety of sentences. Okay, so what I would like you to do is to spend about 5 minutes looking again just at this section and seeing what other things you can pick out. Okay, so what other techniques? You can use the ones that we've already talked about, but I want you to to be able to explain what the effect of those things is. So I've talked about them a little bit, but you can rewrite that in your own words. If you are stuck, you can have a look at the next slide for some ideas. I'm going to use that in a minute. I'm sorry, that was my cat in the background being very silly. So we're going to use that in a minute to check the answers that we've got and maybe add some more to our answers. So what I would like you to do now is to pause the video for 5 minutes and complete this task. See you in 5 minutes. Welcome back. Hopefully now you have a nicely annotated beginning of this extract. And I'm going to show you a few ideas you could have used. If you haven't got these, then you can always add them to your extract, but make sure you do it in another colour so we can see where you've improved. So here are a few ideas you could have used, okay? So you could talk about short sentences right at the beginning and say that short sentences are used too. Now, I would finish this maybe saying something like, short sentences are used to make the opening really dramatic, really effective. It means that the reader reads very quickly and reads on very quickly. Another thing you can talk about is Riordan gradually revealing the details, but doing it slowly. Then saying this helps to build up the tension in the beginning. This helps to make the reader more interested, more intrigued as to what's going on. Then we can talk about the use of the direct address. Okay, so this is the same thing that we've talked about before. So you could have just filled that in with the effect of at the end. So the effect of bringing in the reader, making them part of the opening. Okay, well done. Hope you've got some ideas there. Spend a couple of minutes now just adding to those if you haven't got them. If you have, then let's carry on. So here we are with our main task for the rest of this lesson. Okay, what I would like you to do is to quickly reread or re-listen to the rest of the extract and think about what other techniques Riordan uses throughout. Okay, so you could think about things like metaphors or similes, if you remember what those are from primary school. If you don't, you could even have a look and Google those and see if you want to add those in. Think about the things we've talked about so far, okay? And like we've been doing already, I want you to label them and explain the effect in full sentences. You want to challenge yourself, then think about how well does this work as an opening overall? Could it be improved? And how would you improve it? What would you add in or change to make it better? Now for this task, I want you to spend about 15 minutes working independently. And if you want to, at the end, you can mark your ideas up against the answer sheet. So I would say pause this video now and spend 15, that is 15 minutes, working through the rest of the extract. See you on the other side. Well done, you've basically completed the lesson. Now, as our last little thought before we go, what I would like you to do is, without looking at any of the slides we've already done, okay, I want you to write down a sentence answering the question, why is the opening of a story important? Now, you could do it like I've done it on a post-it. You could do it in a document. You could do it just at the end of all the work that you've done this lesson so far. Okay, answer the question, why is the opening of a story important? So well done. Thank you for a fantastic lesson, and I look forward to teaching you some more in the future. Bye for now.